Hi guys, it's Michelle, Deception Bytes, and it is August the 7th at 3:11 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, I know that I am behind. I did do a video yesterday, and I know you're saying, no you didn't, but really I did. The problem was that after I had finished it and was getting ready to upload it, then I discovered that there was no recording. So I decided to leave it to today. Now, oddly enough, I have never had this much trouble with a video ever. Not ever. Strange things are happening. Not only was I having difficulty getting through it without laughing, and there's nothing really in it that's funny at all. So I don't know where that's even coming from, but I kept laughing, and so I've had to redo it and redo it and redo it. And finally, I was happy with the recording. And again, I went to upload it to a stop recording and upload it, and discovered once again, believe it or not, that it hadn't been recording. So I am going to keep checking through this video because this is getting ridiculous at this point. I don't know what is the deal with this particular video, but I've had a heck of a time trying to get it to you. So let's hope that it's worth the wait. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to go out and check. Yes, I'm still recording. Wonderful. That's what we want. So we're going to start with August 5th. And August 5th was Sunday. And we're going to get completely caught up to date as of yesterday's post. I haven't looked today to see if there are new posts yet. But I will do so. And I will bring those to you today as well if they're there. So let's go and pick up from where we left off in the last video. Here we are, August 5th, and Q says, FISA, FISA, FISA. You know, it's kind of like Marcia, 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 except it's FISA, FISA, FISA. And then we have 20, the number 20, bolded and in square brackets, kill brackets. And Q says, there is a reason why we needed to go mainstream prior to the evidence being dropped. Now, I am of the opinion that this 20 means there are 20 pages that are now redacted in the FISA that need to be unredacted. Not sure if that's a word, but it should be if it isn't. And then he says there's a reason why we needed to go mainstream prior to the evidence being dropped. What evidence? Well, considering this is all in the same post, I think he's referring to this evidence contained in the 20 pages that are now redacted. Once it is unredacted and that evidence is dropped, Q says that it was necessary to have gone mainstream before that happened. Now, could I be wrong? And could this evidence be referring to something else? Absolutely. I'm not discounting that fact at all. It very well could be wrong. I am just offering you one interpretation. There may be others, but I think it is probably the most reasonable interpretation. So there's a reason why we needed to go mainstream prior to the evidence being dropped. And I think if you're doubting at this point if we've gone mainstream or not, you have either not been on the internet and watching TV, or you're just not paying attention, because it's everywhere, and I do mean everywhere. You can't be on Facebook, Twitter, anywhere without seeing it. Anywhere on the news, you go to check out the news, whether it's on TV, whether it's on the internet, it's there. And interestingly enough, they're all saying the exact same story. You know, there's slight variation in the story, but it's all the same thing, that Q is a conspiracy, and that we were first made aware of it en masse in the Tampa, Florida rally, Trump's rally in Tampa, Florida. So it is definitely mainstream, and it's not, the stuff that is being said about Q is all the same from the left. The left is saying that it's a conspiracy, that it's just crazy people that are toothless and have no hair. I don't know what they're saying, but it's I think they called us hillbillies at one point, said that we smelled bad. Oh, there's just, the list is endless of what they call us. But you and I both know that we are reasonable people. We're not crazy conspiracy theorists running off with whatever. We have checked this out and been following it from the beginning. So there's a reason why they went mainstream. You have more than you know. Now, personally, I think that these drops that Q has given us over this time, I think there's probably far more encoded into them than we're even aware of at this point. And perhaps, maybe sometime even distant future, we may look back and say, wow, there was this and this and this here, but we didn't see it. And I think that's true. I think even now, if we went back to the first and we started looking at the drops one by one, we would say, oh, we know what he means by this now. We know what he means by that, and so forth. But it's hard enough to keep up with the drops as it is at this point without going back and researching the earlier ones, which would be quite a daunting task at this point in the game. Now, he says D5. There's a couple theories on this. Some people believe that it stands for 45, POTUS being the 45th president of the United States, and D being the fourth letter of the alphabet. I do not think that it means that, and I think that Q shows us what he means by D5. D5 is the absolute worst avalanche that you could possibly have is a D5. It's catastrophic. And I think that's what he's talking about, because he often talks about the snowball, and we know a snowball, you start it from the top of the mountain, and by the time it's 3/4 of the way down, you better get out of the way, because that snowball is going to crush anything in its path. It may have started very small. It could have fit in your hand, but it doesn't stay that way, and that's what's happening to the Q movement. It's getting out there. Now, right now, we've got negative attention on us, but I think when some of this stuff is proven and the evidence is dropped, I think that that will change very quickly. So, D5, the avalanche, it's coming. It's bigger than, it can't be stopped now. It's too big to stop. And where we go one, we go all. Q. So let's go on to the next. Again, this is from August 5th, and Q is referring to his earlier post from May 10th, but it's interesting how timely this post really is. Now, forgive me if I want to keep checking that it's still recording, but how many times does one woman have to, do a video before it's recorded properly? Anyway. Fellow Patriots, Q says on May 10th, fellow Patriots, what you are about to learn should not only scare you, but intensify your resolve to take back control. And by control, of course, he means freedom. And he's got it bolded and in square brackets. The information that will become public will further demonstrate the criminal and corrupt, and by corrupt, he means pure evil, abuse of power that the Hussein administration undertook in joint efforts with domestic and foreign dignitaries. Now remember this part, the foreign dignitaries. It wasn't just domestic dignitaries. There were foreign dignitaries involved as well. Who they all are remains to be seen. But there has been a rumor out there, and I don't know if it's been debunked yet or not. I would imagine that if it was true, it would be splashed over all the news. But there were rumors last night anyway that Justin Trudeau had been arrested in his part in this plot. Now, it wouldn't surprise me, not in the least, to surmise that he's included in this, because after all, he's given millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation, and he's about as far left as you can get without falling over. And so, I don't know. The time may come. Now, he may show up with boots on, like No Name and Hillary, to hide the ankle bracelet. I don't know. I guess we need to start paying attention to see if it's true or not. It has the ring of being untrue, but I've learned that the truth is far stranger than fiction. So then Q says, the snowball has begun rolling. And of course, that's that snowball that turns into an unstoppable force. And that is this movement. There is no stopping it now. D5. And of course, the reference to D5 in such close proximity to snowball lets us know that he is indeed talking about an avalanche. Stay the course and trust the plan. Protective measures are in place. Remain brave. We knew this day would come. Then he gives us a link to a video. Now this video has copyrighted material on it, so I'm not going to link to it, but if you go to YouTube and Google or search for this video will get Donald Trump elected, you will find the video. It's been played many, many times, and I'm sure that you've seen it probably numerous times. Then underneath he says, united we stand, worldwide. Where we go one, we go all. We fight. Conspiracy no more. Q. Well, I don't actually think that we're at the point where you can say it's conspiracy no more, because I think a lot of the new people that are coming on board are looking at it as a conspiracy at first and maybe checking it out for themselves and slowly changing their opinion. Some people will not check it out for themselves. They'll believe whatever CNN tells them through whatever talking points CNN received at 4 a.m. from the CIA. They'll believe whatever they're told, and they'll believe whatever the news says, the New York Times or the Washington Post or what have you. And so at this point, it's still a conspiracy. It's still considered a conspiracy by most, except for those of us that are following it. I'm not sure if I finished this. No, I didn't. Now, underneath, Q says, be aware of your surroundings. See something, say something. Q. And that reminds me of the first time I walked into a Walmart. It wasn't the first time I had walked into a Walmart, but it was the first time I had seen this in a Walmart, and it was in Louisiana. And I walked in, and there was huge screens as you walked in and throughout the store. And on the screen was Janet Napolitano saying, if you see something, say something. And it seemed very Orwellian to me at the time, very, very surreal. And I will have that indelibly burned into my mind for the rest of my life, because I remember stopping and thinking, wow, it's like one day it's not there and the next day it's there, and it's just seems strange to me. But Q, in this particular case, Q has a point, because we know that there are false flags that are being planned and attempted all the time. And don't think you're safe just because you're out in the country somewhere or you're in middle America, because I think that all places are unsafe now. I think that we need to be on the lookout wherever we are, because this can happen anytime, anywhere, to anyone. And that's why it produces such terror, because you don't know. If you knew where it was going to be, you'd avoid being there, right? But we don't. We don't know what's going to happen next, where it's going to happen, who it's going to happen to, and that produces terror, and that's what they want. All right, sorry that I knocked that. Let's go on. Now this is interesting. Let's see if I still have this up. I do. Here is a tweet by Trump in regards to LeBron James. LeBron James was just interviewed by the dumbest man on television, John Lemon. He made LeBron look smart, which isn't easy to do. I like Mike. Now, I don't know who he's referring to here. Mike, maybe Mike Tyson? I don't know. Anyway, let's go back here, because in response to that, we get this from Hillary. And let me also comment on something else that I noticed, because I went back and Trump had a tweet before saying LeBron James is a great guy, and now he comes out with this, which is actually not very nice to LeBron James. So I don't know, but I'm wondering if perhaps in the future we're going to find out that he has been involved in something nefarious. I don't know, but it just seems that way, that Trump has this way of calling people names that have been involved in something nefarious. So I guess that will remain to be seen. I don't want to, blame him unnecessarily for something. Now, Hillary Clinton responds to Trump's tweet and says, "At King James is a great family man, incredible ball player, gives back to his community, and isn't afraid to speak his mind. He's a world-class athlete and a class act. We need more like him in this world." Now, I think that Trump is setting Hillary up here, in a sense, because I think something's going to come out. That's my thought. I could be wrong. But this in itself is a little bit odd, considering that she hangs out with a Ku Klux Klan member. So don't know how you reconcile those two things, really. Here she is getting kissy face with Robert Byrd, KKK member, greeting him with a kiss, and looks like they are embracing. Says, regarding Robert Byrd, KKK member, "From my first day in the Senate, I sought out his guidance, and he was always generous with his time and his wisdom. And as Secretary of State, I continued to rely on his advice and counsel." Hillary Clinton, 2008. And here he is in his uniform, I guess, or his little KKK getup. And Q says, "It's time to learn the truth. Reconcile." Q. And what he's saying is, reconcile the fact that she's all kissy face here with, Robert Byrd, but she's defending a black man here. So what is it, Hillary? What do you stand for? Which is it? Because, I don't have any problem believing that Hillary Clinton is racist, not at all. But again, I don't want to accuse her unnecessarily because I don't know. She certainly has no problem with hanging out with a KKK member, and I would think that if you believed all men were created equally, as they are, all men and all women created equally, then you would not be hanging out with a KKK member. But hey, maybe that's just me. Now, Q here on August 5th tells us that there's going to be a trip update. This is done every so often. It's nothing to be concerned about. And he warns us here, trip update, Q. Then in about 2 minutes later, with a new trip date, he says trip date confirmed, Q. Trip update confirmed, rather, Q. So now Q is going by this trip code. This happens every so often for safety and security. And again, it's not anything that we need to overly concern ourselves with. Now, this is the first post from August 6th, which was yesterday. And Q says, important to understand prior to next. So it's what he's saying is, and what is he saying? Prior to next what? Next post? I don't know. He could mean that. Next drop? Could be. Next big thing to drop? I don't know what he's saying prior to next. All I know is that before we can go further, either in the post or whatever, we need to understand these two pieces of information that he's given. And that's where we're going to go now. So let's go. See, I was able to sneak a drink in there while you weren't looking. All right. Now, this is the U.S. House of Representatives Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. And I do believe this is very important. Not only has Q told us that it's important for us to understand, but after having gone through it numerous times, I too think it's very important. So let's look at this. Memo key points. The committee has made this memo public due to the American people's right to know this information. The committee, which is responsible for overseeing the activities of the intelligence community, hopes the publication of this information will help inform the public about abuses that have occurred at the DOJ and FBI and spur needed reform and accountability at those agencies so that similar abuses will not occur under any administration, Democrat or Republican. The government's surveillance capabilities are extraordinary powers that must be carefully circumscribed to protect Americans' civil liberties. Any use of these powers for political purposes or for any purpose other than defending the American people is intolerable. The decision to release the memo was procedurally sound in accordance with House and committee rules and included review by the executive branch and over 200 members of the House. It is in the public interest to release the memo, which was carefully crafted to safeguard national security. So, having said that, let's look at the key revelations from the declassified memo. The Steele dossier formed an essential part of a FISA application targeting Carter Page. Former FBI Director McCabe confirmed that no surveillance warrant would have been sought from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court without the Steele dossier information. So McCabe is saying that they would not have been able to seek a warrant, a FISA warrant, from the the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court without that dossier. So without the dossier, there would have been no, they would not have been able to spy, which was essentially what they were doing. They call it surveillance, I call it spying. FBI and DOJ obtained from the FISC an initial warrant and 3 FISA renewals. So the way this works, just so you know, is they go to the FISA court and they take all their documents to seek a warrant. And it's a FISA application. They want an application to gain a warrant to be able to conduct surveillance. But that only lasts for 90 days. And then you must go back and provide additional information as to why continued surveillance is necessary. So you go, you get this warrant for surveillance, and it's given to you for 90 days. At the end of the 90 days, you don't have any information. You go back to the court. It'll probably be denied because you don't have any additional information and there's been no information gained during that 90 days. Also, it's a waste of taxpayers' money. So the court is not going to just, keep signing off on it if nothing is happening. So not only did they get the initial one, but it was renewed 3 times. So there's 4. There's 4 FISA applications altogether. So FBI and DOJ obtained from the FISC an initial warrant and 3 FISA renewals, so 4 altogether. Then FBI James Comey signed 3 FISA applications in question on behalf of the FBI, and former Deputy Director Andrew McCabe signed 1. Then, the then Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates, then Acting Deputy Attorney General Dana Boente, and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein each signed 1 or more FISA applications on behalf of the DOJ. So you have to have the DOJ and the FBI signing off. So three of them, James Comey signed off on. 1, Andrew McCabe. And here, each of them signed off on 1 or more. And we've got Yates, Boente, and Rosenstein. All right. Steele was paid over $160,000 by the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, and Hillary for America, the Clinton campaign, for his dossier. Neither the initial application in October 2016 nor any of the renewals disclose or reference the role of the DNC, Clinton campaign, or any party campaign in funding Steele's effort, even though the political origins of Steele's dossier were then known to senior DOJ and FBI officials. So they knew that this was being paid for by the Clinton campaign, but they didn't think that was important enough to bring to the court to obtain the FISA application to get the warrant. They didn't think that was, I guess, important enough to mention. Or did they intentionally leave it out? Which is, well, I think we know what happened. While the FISA application relied on Steele's past record of credible reporting on other unrelated matters, it ignored or concealed his anti-Trump financial and ideological motivations. Before and after Steele was terminated as a source, he maintained contact with the DOJ via then Associate Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr. In September 2016, Steele told Orr he was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being president. Orr later relayed this information of Steele's bias to FBI, where it was recorded in official files, but not included in any of the FISA applications. That's strange, isn't it? Was it just an oversight? Sure. None of the FISA applications mention that the FBI had separately authorized payment to Steele for the dossier information. According to the head of the FBI's Counterintelligence Division, Assistant Director Bill Presap, corroboration of the Steele dossier was in its infancy at the time of the initial that's Carter Page, FISA application. In early January 2017, Director Comey briefed President-elect Trump on a summary of the Steele dossier, a document he later described as salacious and unverified. The Carter Page FISA application incorrectly assesses that Steele did not directly provide information to Yahoo News. Steele has admitted in British court filings that he met with Yahoo News and several other outlets in September 2016 at the direction of Fusion GPS. Perkins Coie, the law firm that hired Fusion GPS on behalf of the DNC and Clinton campaign, was aware of Steele's initial media contacts and hosted at least one meeting in Washington, D.C. in 2016 with Steele and Fusion GPS. Orr's wife was employed by Fusion GPS. No conflict of interest there, is there? To assist in the cultivation of opposition research on Trump. Orr later provided the FBI with all of his wife's opposition research, paid for by the DNC and Clinton campaign via Fusion GPS. The Carter Page FISA application also mentions information regarding fellow Trump campaign advisor George Papadopoulos, but there is no evidence of any cooperation or conspiracy between Carter Page and George Papadopoulos. And I love that name, Papadopoulos. I'm going to say it again, Papadopoulos. And once more, Papadopoulos. All right, let's continue. Top 10 memo facts. Now, I'm not going to read all of this, but I'm going to read that's bolded because it's not as important as what follows, and we are almost finished with this document. The memo is not intended to undermine the special counsel. The memo is not intended to undermine the DOJ or FBI. The memo does not jeopardize national security. The memo does not undermine FISA Section 702. And It has nothing to do with Section 702, which targets foreigners located overseas. The memo does not contain any factual errors. The memo does not result from cooperation with the White House. No one outside the House Intelligence Committee played any role in drafting the memo. The memo is not a collection of partisan talking points. It lays out important facts for the American people about FISA abuses. The memo is not the product of secret changes. Minor edits were made before the vote to publicly release the memo, which was procedurally sound. The memo is not a staff-driven exercise. All committee Republican members were engaged in the process that led to the memo. The committee did not suppress the Democrats' memo. It voted unanimously to follow the same process for minority memos by first making it available to the House. Now, here is the House Committee's memo edits. SPSCI ranking member Adam Schiff has been a ceaseless opponent to the committee's attempts to collect and share information on FISA abuses. He even denounced the committee's issuance of subpoenas to the DOJ and FBI for information the agencies were withholding from congressional oversight. In a last-ditch effort to block publication of the HPSCI memo, ranking member Schiff issued a press release complaining about minor edits the committee made to the memo. The edits implemented before HPSCI voted to make the memo public included routine minor technical changes and edits suggested by the FBI and by the committee minority themselves, respectively. Ranking member Schiff's press release was one in a long line of media stunts meant to oppose transparency and stifle the committee's investigation of possible surveillance abuses by top officials at the FBI and DOJ. Now, this has been very well written. It's put very succinctly, and it lays it all out in a way that we can all understand exactly what the issue was, and continues to be, and it tells us exactly what went on. So this, I think, is an excellent document, and I'm glad we have it finally. Now, let's go back to here, and let's go to the second one, which is not as long, and it's going to give us a summary. Again, it's from the U.S. House of Representatives Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and FISA Title I Summary. It's going to explain to us what it is. Title I of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act governs the targeting of foreign powers or agents of foreign powers for electronic surveillance by the U.S. government. Agents of foreign powers can be either U.S. persons or non-U.S. persons. If the agent of a foreign power is a U.S. person, the government must show that the U.S. person is engaging in espionage, terrorism, or sabotage by or on behalf of a foreign power that involves a violation of a criminal statute. So those are the conditions that must be met before a warrant is ever issued. If the person is a U.S. person, then they must show that they're engaging in espionage, terrorism, or sabotage by or on behalf of a foreign power that involves a violation of a criminal statute. That wasn't met in gaining the warrants. Those points were not met. Applications to target a U.S. person under Title I must be accompanied by a certification from a senior national security official, which may include the director or deputy director of the FBI. They must then be approved by the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, or the Assistant Attorney General for National Security. If one of those officials approves an application, it is then sent to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, which consists of judges selected by the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, who served on a rotating basis. The court decides whether to approve or deny an application based on whether the government has demonstrated probable cause to believe the proposed target is a foreign power or agent of a foreign power, and that the facility or place where the electronic surveillance will be directed is being used by the foreign power or agent of a foreign power. If the application is approved, the U.S. government can conduct electronic surveillance of the target for a period of time specified in the application. At the end of that time period, the government must stop surveilling the target. That never happened. They must stop surveilling the target unless it goes back to the court and applies to renew the surveillance, which they did. For targeted U.S. citizens, FISA applications must be renewed by the court every 90 days with a separate finding of probable cause to continue surveillance. So they can't just, have the same evidence and just keep using it over and over and over again to gain surveillance of a so-called target who's a U.S. citizen. But if they have probable cause, additional probable cause to continue the surveillance, then they'll be granted renewal. So we can already see, just reading through this, that it's been violated. And this says Title I is a different authority than Section 702, which Congress authorized several weeks ago. Now, I do want to check to make sure I am recording, and I am. So, all right. Now, let's continue. So, again, we have to remember that he's saying it's important to understand this prior to next. All right. And this is the next. Psychological projection. What is psychological projection? Well, projection happens when you accuse somebody else of something that you are doing yourself. You are projecting that onto them. You believe that because you are guilty of that, they must also be guilty of that. Or, you may be doing it intentionally, which I believe that they're doing. But it's like if you, I'll use the instance of a wife just because I'm a woman, but if my husband accused me of sleeping around on him, I don't have a husband, but if I did, and I did, had a husband who accused me of cheating, which he did, not that I'm bitter or anything, but anyway, but he himself was engaged in that. You're not guilty. I wasn't guilty of anything. That was the last thing on my mind. And I didn't suspect him either of that because I thought, well, if I'm faithful, he must be being faithful. That's what I thought. But he was projecting his guilt onto me by accusing me, him being the guilty one. Well, we see this every day. We see that the far left is hurling things at us that they are guilty of themselves. This is psychological projection. And that's all the news seems to be anymore, is psychological projection. Define conspiracy. Well, we don't have to because Q does it for us here. He says, 1, conspiracy, a secret plan by a group to do something unlawful or harmful, as in a conspiracy to destroy the government. Well, we certainly can't say that Q is engaged in a conspiracy to destroy the government, but we certainly can say that the deep state is, and yes, they do exist, no matter what or how much people make fun of it, there is a deep state, and they are engaged in an unlawful and harmful conspiracy to destroy the government. 2, the actual, well, they're maybe not the government as a whole, but certainly they're conspiring to take down a sitting president that was duly elected. Now, number 2, the action of plotting or conspiring. as in they were cleared of conspiracy rather. Oh my gosh, I'm telling you, this has been the most difficult post I've ever had, and now my phone is vibrating there if you heard it, but I'm not going to answer it because this is difficult enough. Okay, they were cleared of conspiracy to pervert the course of justice. Fake news. Now, he's going to tell us here what the fake news is doing. They are collaborating and pushing knowingly false information. He's asking it as a question, but of course he means it as a statement because that's exactly what they're doing. They're collaborating and pushing knowingly false information. Fake news, knowingly false narrative pushes. Yes, and they know it's false. They get their talking points at 4 a.m. from the CIA. It's given to them and they all come up with the same stories. Now, do you think these people are not stupid? They're probably not. They're probably pretty reasonable people, but they're doing what they need to do to keep their jobs or what have you. But they must see that, gee, all the news is the same. Everybody has the same story. Must have all came from the same place. So if we're getting our drops at 4 a.m., they must all be getting their drop at 4 a.m. too. So I think that they pretty much know that it's false, but they don't care. One, and these are the knowingly false narrative pushes. Number one, that POTUS has colluded with Russia to win the 2016 presidential election. Well, that's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. And I don't know about you, but I'm so sick of hearing about the Russians. Russia, 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 Russia. Everything's Russia's fault. If your dog has fleas, it's Russia's fault. If, your golf score wasn't good, it was probably Russia's fault. If your teeth are bad, it's probably Russia putting something in your food. If you got asthma, it's Russia. Anything. It's all Russia. Everything. Our bags, you used to get a bag of chips and it would be like full of chips, but now it's like half air. That's Russia's fault. It's Russia's fault that sour cream doesn't have an expiration date. It's Russia. It's Russia's fault that your vegetables go bad in your fridge. It's probably Russia's fault that you're not eating enough vegetables. If you're a regular, it's probably Russia too. So anyway, everything is Russia's fault. And the sooner that we realize that, then I guess the happier we'll be, according to the left, because it's all Russia. Everything's Russia's fault. POTUS is puppin to Putin. He's a Putin puppet. Puppet to Putin. That's what Maxine Waters says, isn't it? He's in the pocket of Putin. He's in Putin's pocket. He's a puppet in Putin's pocket. That's what he is. He's a Putin puppet. Not Putin puppet, because that would be just plain nasty. But he's a Putin puppet. Putin puppet. Okay, POTUS to irreparably harm relationship with our allies. Well, that's not happened, but of course they're telling us that it is. And of course there are some of U.S. allies that are not too happy with the United States. I can name one, Canada. Oh, we don't like the United States. I do. I guess because I consider myself American, but I was born here, but I consider myself American. And, I know that Trudeau, he doesn't like POTUS. That's pretty evident. But I guess that's to be expected because, look at all the money he's given into the Clinton Foundation. We know what side he's on. And I don't think that he could stand up for anything, personally. But POTUS will collapse U.S. economy. Really? Economy seems to be doing pretty well to me. Everyone I talk to throughout the United States are saying that they're seeing help wanted signs everywhere. In fact, there's more jobs available than there are people to fill them. Is that a collapsed economy? Don't think so. I think that for the most part, people that want a job right now can have a job. And now I'm not talking about everywhere. There may be places that are remote that you may live in a town where the economy's just not good there for whatever reason, and that may be so. But as a whole, America is doing better than it has in a very, very, very long time, perhaps ever. POTUS will collapse the stock market. Stock market looks like it's pretty strong to me. Now the stock market could collapse. I don't think it's POTUS that will cause that, but there's always the possibility of a crash. POTUS will cause war with North Korea. Oh, really? Seems like we're at peace with North Korea now. That's never happened before. Why couldn't Hillary or, well, not Hillary, but Obama or Bush or any of the people that have come before, how come they couldn't do this? Trump made it look kind of easy. I'm sure it wasn't, but he did make it kind of look easy. So, yeah, don't think there's going to be war with North Korea. POTUS will cause war with Iran. Well, I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be war with Iran. I can't look into the future, but I'm pretty sure that if they're pushing that it's probably not going to happen because they're pushing false narratives. POTUS will destroy the world. Yeah, that's a little bit melodramatic, don't you think? He's going to destroy the world? Really? Okay. On and on, knowingly false. Fear and scare push. Yeah, they're trying to create a fear and they're trying to scare us. I'm not scared. You scared? Nah. They would rather see North Korea peace negotiations fail and have war than see POTUS resolve the situation. And that's true. They all acted disappointed that we had peace negotiations with North Korea. They all acted really, really upset about it. I think they wanted war. I think they would have been happier with that so they could say, I told you he was no good. It's all his fault. This war, it's all his fault. They wanted that. Scandalous media bias? Oh, you betcha. Absolutely. Anyone that doesn't see that at this point just doesn't want to see it. Conspiracy? Well, yes, it's a conspiracy on their part. Collaboration? Yes, they're all collaborating. All the media. I mean, be it radio, television, print, they're all cooperating together. What are they hiding? Well, I think that remains to be seen. In some cases, they may not be hiding anything. I don't think everybody's guilty. I think they are in one respect because they're doing their job and they are presenting the news, which they know full well is not true. So in that, they are guilty. But I don't know. Some of these people may be hiding a lot. Some of them may be hiding very little. I don't know. That remains to be seen. Fake news media is not free and independent. Well, no. And when have we ever had free and independent press? I don't know. When was the last time the press was free and independent? If any of you know, put it in the comments below because I don't know. I would really like to know. And I probably should research that because it would be interesting to see how long have we been being manipulated this way? I mean, I think it was prior to Mockingbird. Personally, I think propaganda has existed forever. Personally, fake news media equals propaganda arm of the Democratic Party. Well, it sure is. Because you don't see the Republican point of view being, talked about at all. Not in a positive way, ever. Sometimes on Fox News. Anyway, think WikiLeaks list of journalists who colluded with Hillary Rodham Clinton and the DNC during the 2016 presidential election. They want you divided. And this is how they're trying to divide us. They're trying to divide us by race, which personally is the stupidest reason to be divided ever. Really. We're all in this together, all of us. They want us divided by religion, by culture, by class, by political affiliation. Now, this reminds me, I bought a little blow up boat, okay? And, I hate to talk your hind leg off, but this is pertinent, really. I bought this little blow up boat, and I picked up a friend of mine, and this boat, I went to one of those places where you put air in your tires, and I blew it up, and it had a couple paddles with it. And the problem is I've got a really little economy car, and it can't tow anything, but I wanted to get like a canoe or a boat of some sort, and my car won't tow anything. So I bought a blow up boat. It's the next best thing because I didn't want to buy a new car. So I blow this boat up and I shove it in my car, which everybody is laughing at me at the gas station because they're like, "What is she doing?" I've got a hatchback and I'm just pushing this boat in there, and I'm pushing and pushing, and it's in there, but it really looks like something on a cartoon because now, like, even for me to get in, like, my face is kind of almost smashed into the steering wheel from the boat, and I can't see anything out of any of the windows except the front window, which is illegal, but I really shouldn't have done it. I realize that, but I did anyway. And I then proceed to go pick up a friend. So I go pick her up, and she's laughing because I told her we were going swimming in the river. And so she's, in her bathing suit and everything, and she comes out and she sees this boat, and she's like, "How am I supposed to get in?" I said, "Any way you can, honey, any way you can." So she opens the door, and like, she's just a little tiny thing. Like, I'm small, she's even tinier. And so she gets in there and kind of squishes herself in there, can hardly breathe. And if we'd been in an accident, none of us, we would have been just like stuck there. Anyway, so we go to the river, we put the boat in there. Well, we, push it out with our paddles and everything. But the problem is that we could not get it going so that we were paddling at the same time in the same direction. So we would either go in a circle clockwise, or we would end up in a circle counterclockwise. And it was getting very frustrating. And everyone was laughing at us. Everyone kept thinking that we needed to be rescued. I don't know how many boats came by us. And finally, my friend got sick and tired of that and yelled at them, "We're too poor for a boat." And then they left us alone. So anyway, the whole thing there is we're all in the boat together, okay? Think of America as one great big boat, and there's people in there that you might not like very much. There probably are, and there's all different races, and there's all different religions, and there's all different cultures, and they're all different classes, and there's both political affiliations, probably more. And we're all in this boat, and we're all paddling, but we're all paddling different directions. Now, what's going to happen? Well, either eventually we're going to sink, really, because a storm's going to come and it's just going to swamp the boat and we'll all die. But the other thing is, we're not going anywhere. We're just going to sit there because, we might go 3 inches this way and 3 inches the other way, and some forward and some back, but we'll pretty much stay in the same place because we're not rowing together. Well, we need to get together. We need to stop being divided. We need a leader, someone like Donald Trump, to say to everyone, "Okay, people, row, and set the pace for us. Tell us what direction we're rowing. Let's go. Stop all the nonsense, all the division by stupid things like the color of our skin. Who cares? Really, who cares? You're American. That's what we care about. Don't care if you're Chinese or Japanese or African American or Native Indian. Who cares? If you're American, you're American, and we're all in the same boat, and we better start rowing in the same direction, or there's going to be war. Really. And you can see it. They're trying to divide us. And why are they trying to divide us? Because that's how you conquer a people. You divide them. They divide us because when we're apart, we're weak. But can we not just pull together on the fact that we're all American, that we're all going in the same direction, that we're all in the same boat? Can we not look to our leader and listen for him to set the pace? Row, row, row. And we're going to get to where we're going. But if we don't stop listening to these people on the mainstream media about that are trying, and they're literally paying people to protest, then we're not going anywhere. And I think we all know it at this point. You, the people, have the power. We, the people, we have the power. I like that song. We've got the power. I'm sorry. This movement challenges their forced narrative. This movement challenges people to not simply trust what's being reported. Research for yourself. Think for yourself. Trust yourself. Trust your gut. Seriously. This movement is not about one person or a group of people. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's not about Q. It's not about President Trump. It's about all of us as a people learning to row the same direction. We, the people. You are witnessing a full panic attack by the fake news media and covert alt media affiliates. Yeah, don't think all the news media, the fake news media, are the only ones that are doing this. There are also covert alt media affiliates. And Q is saying that foreign government. There are some from foreign governments that are involved in covert alt media. They're affiliates, but they're doing the exact same thing, and they're propagating the same sort of propaganda that the left is. They cannot contain or defeat what they do not understand. Is any of this normal? No, I don't think we've seen normal for a while now. Think sealed indictments count. Yeah, think about it. Is that normal? All those indictments? It's anything but normal. Think resignation of CEOs. Think resignations of senators. Think resignations of Congress. Think termination of senior FBI. Think termination of senior DOJ. When has any of this happened? Not like this, ever. We are in an unprecedented point in history. Unprecedented. And Q says this is Watergate times 1,000. Yeah, and if you are too young to know what Watergate is, then I would suggest you look it up and see exactly what it is. Because I'm sure there are people listening here that are far too young for Watergate. They should cover it in history, but I don't know if they do or not. So anyway, if you are unaware of Watergate, please look it up because it's important. It's important that we understand history so we don't repeat it, which we're doing right now, repeating it. Attacks will only intensify. Logical thinking. Ask yourself a simple question. Why? Why is all this happening? Well, obviously there's a threat, or it wouldn't be, right? They wouldn't be putting out all these false narratives if they weren't a little bit worried, right? Remember, they never thought she would lose, but we're certainly glad she did. Now, let me check one more time. We are still recording, and I'm very happy about that. Very, very happy. I'm so happy. I'm going to take a drink. I'm sure I'll do much better now that I'm not as thirsty. Okay. So, next, Q says, the bill that opened the door for Twitter, Facebook, Google, etc. to censor and control. Well, this should be interesting. And because I've done this video a couple times through already, it is interesting. It's very interesting. This is the bill that makes it possible for them to censor and control us. All right, let's go out and take a look. And here we are. It's HR 5181, Countering Foreign Propaganda and Disinformation Act of 2016. I'm not going to read every single thing, but there are a few things that we need to look at. Now, the purpose of this bill is, to counter foreign disinformation and propaganda and for other purposes. Well, that's not very descriptive, is it? And for other purposes. I think they should have perhaps laid out what those other purposes are. Because I bet at this point, not many people could foresee it being used for what it's being used for today. Anyway, this is, in case you didn't know, a bill. They had to put that right there in big bold letters, a bill. To counter foreign disinformation and propaganda and for other purposes, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled. Section 1, short title. The act may be cited as the Countering Foreign Propaganda and Disinformation Act of 2016. And it is the sense of Congress that, now this is the important part, foreign governments, including the governments of Russian Federation and the People's Republic of China, use disinformation and other propaganda tools to undermine the national security objectives of the United States and key allies and partners. Yes, they do. And we engage in propaganda against foreign governments as well. So what? The Russian Federation in particular has conducted sophisticated and large-scale disinformation campaigns that have sought to have a destabilizing effect on United States allies and interests. Prove it. Prove it. I don't believe that. I don't think that it's had a destabilizing effect. Anyway, yeah, this is back in 2016, remember, and 2016, boy, there's sure a lot happening then, and I think that they pretty much knew that Hillary would win, but I think that they were putting a few things in place, and I believe that this is one of them. They probably knew full well that this would be a Trojan horse that they could use to censor the internet. I think they knew full well. And again, we just keep hearing the Russia, because Russia is responsible for everything. Yep. If you have a sparse beard, it's Russians. They're spraying hair begone into our air. In the last decade, disinformation has increasingly become a key feature of the government of the Russian Federation's pursuit of political, economic, and military objectives in Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, and the Balkans, and throughout Central and Eastern Europe. Russia. The challenge of countering disinformation extends beyond effective strategic communications and public diplomacy, requiring a whole-of-government approach to leveraging all elements of national power. The United States government should develop a comprehensive strategy to counter foreign disinformation and propaganda and assert leadership in developing a fact-based strategic narrative. Oh, I see. So the government is going to tell us, and they're going to develop a fact-based strategic narrative. Oh, I see. So if it's something they don't agree with, must be coming from the Russians. Well, didn't we see that just a little while ago with the Russian bots? Oh, they called us all Russian bots because we were spewing things that they didn't agree with. It went against their narrative. And so they just jumped in there with their whole of government approach and leveraged all elements of national power to shut us down. And so that they could develop a fact-based strategic narrative. Yes. So all of a sudden, we all were Russian bots. I'm not a bot. Are you a bot? Is your neighbor a bot? Are your friends bots? We're all bots. Apparently, because I know they were doing it to just about all of the Q followers and those espousing a Republican viewpoint or conservative viewpoint. Seems to me we were all Russian bots. I don't know. I haven't found any Russian bots yet. I'm sure they exist somewhere, but certainly not in the numbers that they are saying that they do. That is a lie. An important element of the strategy should be to protect and promote a free and healthy and independent press in countries vulnerable to foreign disinformation. Like our own, perhaps? Oh, they're saying, they need to promote. So what they're doing is the thing that they're trying to protect us from. Does that make sense? How did this get passed? Seriously? Really? I don't know. So this is how they proposed that they were going to do it. Center for Information Analysis and Response. Now, there's going to be the establishment. Now, keep in mind, this is back in 2016. Not later than 180 days after the date of the enactment of this act, the Secretary of State shall, in cooperation with the Secretary of Defense, the Director of National Intelligence, the Broadcasting Board of Governors, and other relevant departments and agencies, to establish a Center for Information Analysis and Response. In this section referred to as the center. Oh, a broadcasting board of governors. Okay, and I guess they will be the ones that are deciding what is truth and what is error. Boy, this sounds a lot like, 1984. Yes, a book I am very familiar with and have studied extensively because it's very timely. And I think if any of you guys are readers, you should pick up a copy. Even if you've read it before, don't assume that you remember everything in it, because I sure didn't. I had read it several times before, and recently, within, I'd say, the last 6 months, have read it again and found lots in there that I had forgotten or skipped over. So this is very Orwellian, because we're leaving it to the government to decide what is fact and what is fiction, what is harmful, what is not harmful. This is an assault on free speech, if you ask me. Now, maybe I'm looking at this wrong, but I don't think so. So the purposes of the center are: 1, to lead and coordinate the collection and analysis of information on foreign government information warfare efforts, including information provided by recipients of information access grant funds awarded under subsection E and other sources. I'm not sure what that means, but 2, establish a framework for the integration of critical data and analysis on foreign propaganda and disinformation efforts into the development of national strategy. Okay, well, I think that's what they're doing. They're taking all this, what they call propaganda and disinformation. And what is propaganda and disinformation? Well, it's anything that doesn't agree with the democratic narrative. The narrative of the left, the narrative of the liberals. Anything that disagrees with that is disinformation. It's false. And it's propaganda coming from a foreign source. Even though it's not coming from a foreign source, they just can call us Russian bots, or they can say our Twitter accounts have been taken over by Russian agents. They can say whatever they want. They just shut us down. Just shut us down. So they're going to develop, plan, and synchronize in coordination with the Secretary of Defense, the Director of National Intelligence, the Broadcasting Board of Governors, and other relevant department and agencies, whole of government initiatives to expose and counter foreign information operations directed against United States national security interests, and proactively advanced fact-based narratives that support United States allies and interests. Fact-based narratives. Based according to who? Facts differ according to which side's giving them. You know, and I'll tell you, 1984 is a brilliant depiction of this. So again, it's cheap to get it on Amazon. You can even get it used. Order it on Amazon. You can order it used for probably a couple pennies, and read it. If you're a reader, I would suggest you do it again because it's awesome, and it helps us understand the times we're in. It really does. So I'm not going to read all this. It's unnecessary as far as I'm concerned, because I think we know what this bill is for, and at least we've been told now that this is what they're using, precisely what they're using to censor us. So isn't that special? I don't particularly think so. And Q underneath this says, think Russian bots, think foreign propaganda, the more you know. Q, now you know why they're calling us Russian bots, and they're saying these, fake accounts that Russians are making, and that's why. That's why. Now we know. All right, now this is the last post for August 6th. I'm not sure if Q has posted today, as I've not checked yet, but if he has, I will be back with Q posts later on. I'm hoping also to do a video on Q News. I've been meaning to do this for so long that some of the news I had to drop off of there because it just wasn't news anymore. So let's look at this last post. Now, the gross domestic product estimates in trillions of US dollars, and this is from Fox News. And they're calling this unfair trade deals. Trump rages against allies on tariffs. Well, why is he raging against the allies on tariffs? Well, this is going to demonstrate. Canada, 1.8 trillion. Okay, that's their GDP. France, 2.9. Germany, 4.2. Italy, 2.2. United Kingdom, 2.9. Japan, 5.2. The total, 19.2. The United States, their total, it's more than all of these G7 countries combined at $20.4 trillion. So, yeah, ask yourself, if the US GDP is greater than the total of all others combined, G7, which allows us to negotiate from a position of strength, why would previous presidents knowingly, unequally distribute America's wealth away by making unbalanced trade deals? Why, indeed? I'd like to know. I didn't know. Prior to all this, I didn't know. I didn't know that the trade deals were unfair. But now I'm asking the same question. Why are they giving away our money when our infrastructure's crumbling, when our schools desperately need funding? There's people going hungry in the United States of America. And if you doubt me, just take a trip up into the mountains in the Appalachian region. Astounding, the poverty you'll see. It's astounding. You won't even believe that you're in the same country. So there are people going hungry in our country. There are people sleeping on the streets because they have no shelter in our country. And we're giving this money away. Literally. We're squandering the wealth of the people. So why was America's wealth being distributed worldwide? Well, I hope to find that out at some point, because I'd sure like to know. Why was the American taxpayer essentially subsidizing the rest of the world? Good question. Good question. America needs to, now I believe in charity, absolutely. But, it's just like in your home. You're not going to give away your money if your own family is starving, right? Who would do that? Who would give their money away to someone else when their own family was at home starving? So that's the point here. We're subsidizing the rest of the world, and okay, yes, America is a land of peace and plenty, but let's look after our own. Let's look after our infrastructure, our schools, make sure that all the children are fed here, not just children, that people have at least adequate shelter. And then, out of our abundance, we can give. The American taxpayer has no equal anywhere in the world. Access to the American consumer U.S. market is essential for every major country in the world. Everybody wants American goods. Everybody. America was systematically being weakened. Well, I would go further than that. I think America was systematically being raped and plundered. Personally, our military was systematically being weakened. America is back to leading. America first. This is what happens when POTUS has no strings attached. Q. Now, I think that this is wonderful. America first. This is what happens when POTUS has no strings attached. America is back to leading. So let's start getting behind our leader. He is our duly elected leader, and let's start rowing in the same direction. And you know what? You're just going to have to live with it. If you don't like African Americans or Native Americans or Jews or whatever, we're all in this boat together. So we're either got to row in the right direction, or you need to get out of the boat and swim for shore. If you don't, if you can't get along, if you're a white person and you don't like black people, then move. Move. That's what I say. If you just can't get along and you're just not ever going to change, then move someplace where there isn't any. I don't know where that would be, but that's what I would suggest to you. If you don't like Jews and you can't get along with Jews, then don't get out. Move. Go to another country. That's just, seriously, we are all here. We are all Americans. We all have the same color blood. And we're all wanting the same things from our country. We really do. So let's pull together, stop all the infighting, and just all get together and row in the right direction. All right, well, that's it for this video, and it is now 4:29 p.m. Eastern Time here. I am going to be doing another video, but I'm going to get this uploaded first and may run a couple errands, but look for another one later on this evening. So hope you're having a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of it and stay safe.